What's your next step? Well, ours at the Financial Enhancement Group is to sit down with you, give you 90 minutes of our time complimentary. You bring in your tax return, your legacy documents, your investment stuff. We'll give you our best thoughts of things that you need to consider today, things you're going to want to consider in the future, and if we choose to partner together, what FEG will do for you, and we'll put it into writing. Again, that's your next steps meeting. That's what you ought to do. That's what we want you to do. And that's what we're willing to provide for you. We take care of people just like you who are beginning to enter that stage of retirement, separating from the workforce, or what we like to call yourlifeafterwork.com. Give us a call at 800-928-4001 or go to yourlifeafterwork.com. Get signed up for your Next Steps meeting today. Welcome back to Your Retirement Playbook. I'm your host, Joe Clark. Happy to have you along. We are talking about the end game now. What does it look like when you've come to reach the end of your working period of time, you're getting ready to separate from the workforce, and you're talking about your life after work? Now, I'm going to be very, very transparent. I have no intentions of retiring until my mind can no longer do what it is that I do. My body gives out, my head gives out, or God calls me home. I will probably do this. So I don't want anybody saying pot and kettle. That's not my point. I wake up every day and I'm thrilled with what it is I get to do for a living. You guys allowed me to do that, and I can never thank you enough for that. But for those of you who want to leave the workforce, here's what it is you need to think about. And it's really true for those of us who don't want to separate from the workforce. Now, my friend Ed Slott probably puts this as well as anybody when you talk about the end game. He reminds us it doesn't matter who won the first half. It doesn't even matter who won the third quarter of the football game. It's how you finish the game and the final score that counts. Now, here's the interesting part. We talk about for years and years and years in retirement, somebody working 30, maybe 40 years, right? If you started at 20 and you retired at 60, you got 40 years. If you started at 25 and ended 65, you've got 40 years. But if you get to 65, how long does retirement last? And that's really when you get into that life expectancy conversation. And this is something that is very misunderstood. Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, our heroes, since we just left the 4th of July weekend, are patriotic heroes. We're not in their 40s and 50s and 60s and even 70s when they passed away. They were in their 80s. There were quite a few people who were in their 80s back in that period of time. We went down once upon a time to Key West for spring break vacation. It fell over Easter. I took the kids to a church. The windows were all donated. This was probably in 2003, 4, somewhere in that period of time. The windows were all decorated, or the stained glass windows were provided for by people who were all over 95 years old, who died in 1901, 1902, 1903. We've been living an extended period of time for a long time. What's happening with life expectancy is we've eradicated, to a large degree, infancy death. You know, it's still there, sadly enough, for families that have that, but we've gotten rid of that. We can, we've it's amazing. I almost slipped and said something about one of our foster kids, but that my daughter has. The reality is that we've been able to do life-saving measures for babies. We've been able to take care of young people. We've gotten through the war stages. We're living longer overall, not necessarily living a lot longer as individuals. So this becomes a very, very important part in terms of that retirement understanding and knowledge of how long you will live and how long you need to have your money so that you know how much you can actually take out. It also helps the Social Security conversation. So the first question, if you're going to win the end game, you're separating from workforce and you're getting ready to go into that next stage, is how much can you take? Well, the first question, and I think people get this backwards, it's not how much can you take. The first question is how much you need, right? How much do you need to maintain the standard of living to which you become accustomed, or the one you want to become accustomed to? See, people still believe that retirement is really based on a replacement of income. It is not. It is based on a replacement of your standard of living. So if you make $200,000 a year, and you're contributing to your 401k, and your spouse is contributing to their 401k, that's over 50 grand. right? Maybe not you're contributing to the Roth. That could be another 14 grand if you're putting it into it. Then you've got Social Security tax that's on top of that. You're likely, if you were making 200 and you're saving your retirement plans, you're likely living on $120,000 a year, not 200. So in order for that to be able to be replaced, you've got to replace the 120, not the 200. Right? So understand, and that's where that retirement budget comes into place, and we'll help you with that at the Financial Enhancement Group in the Next Steps meeting. But when you look at that, understand what it takes to replace your standard of living, right? And then we have a number that we can take. Now, the higher the percentage you take out of the assets that you have, the more risk that you have of running out of money sooner than you expected or having to deal with market volatility. The younger you are, therefore, the lower the percentage you should plan on taking. So we tell somebody who is around 62 to 64 years old to expect to take about 3.8% of their income right now. And that, again, is in a diversified, properly managed portfolio. That's not out of a bank account. That's not out of the S&P 500 index. That's our number that we use based on what's managed. The older you are, the number that number can rise slightly. The younger you are, the more it ought to go down because you have more opportunities or more exposure to negative market volatility over the course of your lifetime. Again, one of the mistakes that happens when people don't deal with fiduciaries is they talk to brokers, people who haven't done this for very long, or even who have done it for a long time, but haven't done it professionally in terms of retirement planning or distribution planning. If you've averaged 8%, of course you can take 5. No, you can't. No, you can't. If you do that, market volatility will destroy your retirement. And remember, you get one shot at retirement. It's not like cooking, where if you screw it up, you can order Pizza King. If you mess up your retirement plan, you only get one shot at it. Make sure that you've got the most amount of competency working in that room, wisdom, experience, and guidance as possible to help you get to that next stage. So how much can you take? The real question ought to be, how much do you need? And then what do we do to be able to supplement it? And this is where we're able to fine-tune Social Security, your tax rate, things of that nature to be able to accommodate making sure you get what you need. There are a lot of people who start in a period of time where they're taking out a much larger percentage than what I just shared with you, but they're doing that knowing that they're going to have a retirement V for victory. If done correctly, what happens, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you're seeing the blackboard, the value of the account goes down, but they get to a period of time where Social Security can kick in, and you now have a retirement V for victory where the account's able to grow back up. That's the way it's supposed to be done. In a perfect world, that's what happens. The last 10 years, the market has actually gone higher even though people have taken distributions out. And it's been an unprecedented period of time, a large part, again, demographic driven. Part of it has been the quantitative and qualitative easing that we've seen in the marketplace from Federal Reserve. Part of it's low inflation, low interest rates. All of that combined created an unsustainable, if you will, type of market that has really confused some people and got them to make some retirement decisions they probably shouldn't make. You know, somebody says they've done something for 5 or 7 or 8 or 10 years, you would assume that there's a lot of experience there. Be very careful in our industry. You need somebody who's really been around for a while, who understands this, who's willing to tell you the hard facts. And that's that you can't necessarily take the amount of money that your average return has been, even when it's 15 and 20 years out. When can you start? It's question number 2. That's a good question. When can you separate from the workforce? I think everybody wants to have that opportunity to go tomorrow, just not necessarily take the action to do it. I want to know that financially, Barb and I are set. If something happened to me, or if something happened in my lives, I got a different calling for some reason, that we had the capacity financially to be able to go. So you want to know that. You know that by having a retirement budget put into place. What does it cost to maintain your standard of living? So I have a rough idea. It should probably be fixed clearer. I just have there's no part of me that really cares about doing this where I would go tomorrow or the next day. So it's an emergency for me. But I've got a rough idea of what it takes for Barb and I to be able to maintain our standard of living if I'm incapacitated and unable to work. You need to have the same thing. It does need to be divided between fixed expenditure and social expenditure. Fixed are the stuff that you need to be able to do at 55, 65, 75, 85, like eat, pay property taxes, buy utility bills, or pay utility bills rather. So it needs to grow up with inflation. You need to have that calculation in. But the social side is the desire to travel. It's the desire to go to football games, to kayak, to golf, whatever it is. Travel being the biggest of many people's budgets. You need to have that figured out in terms of where it is, and then know what it takes to replace your standard of living. That's the difference between the combination of your fixed and social expenditures. That'll give you an idea of what age. And remember, retirement is never age dependent. In my opinion, it is financial dependent. So can you retire at 35? Absolutely, if you have enough money. Can you retire at 75? Maybe not if you don't have enough money. How does it come out? This is one of our specialties. This is where we're able to come in and find tax efficiency. People look at average returns and statements. Ladies and gentlemen, the amount of money that you can pull out, understanding tax planning and proper distribution is far in excess, in my opinion, than what most people estimate it is. It is very difficult to put it into a quantitative, i.e. a percentage return of a portfolio, but that strategy, those distribution strategies of how much you can pull out and which account it should come out of, needs to look like a choir or a conductive orchestra, if you will. How to take money here and how to take money there and to be able to get it out in the most tax efficient manner possible. Remember that objective in distribution we talked about last week, right? The volatility between distribution points, and second was the tax rate of the average dollar that you pull out. Then question number 4 is when to make adjustments. This is critical to understand. When to make an adjustment is to understand that something has materially changed. I think when people make the statement that if you didn't sell, you didn't lose, it is an absolute mistake. Or that, it's time to go to cash, or, nothing good can happen from here. Remember, if you're going to go all the way to cash, the only thing that you can do is to put money back in when it feels worse than it does today, or you're buying in at a higher price. That makes no sense. But there are periods of time when you need to make adjustment. We have that system put together with our risk barometer, our proprietary investment decision. We do it internally. We do it with tax planning in mind. We follow that decision-making process that we laid out for you that says, here's how we think about things. The fiduciary focus, the family focus process, and know what we can control and know what we can't. Make good decisions, respond, don't react to craziness that is going on inside of the market. Again, respond, don't react with emotion and greed.